It's early September 1986, and I'm attending my freshman orientation as a very nervous and almost frightened individual. It was my first day of high school. It was my first day in a new school. It was my first day in a new town. So I was really, really nervous. Thankfully, during freshman orientation, the high school marching band came in, and they were playing music as they always do. So I was tapping along with the drum beat on my knees as the marching band would come out. And it just so happened, I didn't realize it at the time, but the music teacher kind of spotted the fact that I was doing that, and apparently I was doing it right. So after freshman orientation, he comes up to me and he says, "Pete, what are you doing first period?" And I kind of shrugged my shoulders. I really didn't know what was going on yet. Again, first day in a new school. He's like, "Good, you're in the music room first period." So I go into music room first period, gives me a pair of drumsticks. He gives me a beat. He tells me to play it on the drum. I do it. He gives me another one. I do that. He's like, "Good, you're in the marching band. Can you sing?" I don't know. So he plays a few scales on the piano. Sing that. I sang that. I was in the chorus. And thus began my interest in music, period. Before then, while I listened to a lot of music on the radio, I never thought of myself as any kind of musician. I was never taught. I did some singing back in elementary school, like for plays and things, or for church, but I never really thought of myself as much of a musician. But during my high school years, I developed that into something that was pretty special and pretty interesting. And since then, I've had a love of all kinds of marching band music, classical music, and I've always wanted to conduct. I've done conducting a few times. I did it during band class, and I would do it in the privacy of my own room. In fact, I used to have a conductor's baton that I would use, and I would conduct along with the music. Sometimes I even had scores that I could work with, and I thought that was pretty fun, but it wasn't quite the same as being in front of a live audience and doing it. You don't feel that pressure. You don't feel that rush. Well, it just so happens that for the PlayStation 2, there was a game that came out that satisfied my conductor curiosity. Enter Mad Maestro, this guy right here. And yes, this is the R-Zone sticker for just $10. This game is a conducting game that uses the analog buttons on the PlayStation 2 controller to judge whether you're giving really fierce cues for really loud music or soft cues for playing softly. I thought that it was a pretty unique tactic. Now, unfortunately, here in the US, we didn't get the conducting baton that they got in Japan, which is really a shame because that's the way to really play the game. But nevertheless, if you like classical music, you like rhythm games, and you like quirky kind of games, this really is the game for you. Now, you have to understand that because of the very touchy analog button control on the PS2, you're going to have to play with the options in here a little bit to get the response from the controller buttons that you really want. Sometimes the game is very precise in the kind of control that it wants, so you have to really set that kind of thing for the buttons, each button, so that you know whether you're going with a softer cue or a louder cue or something in the middle. But once you get those button presses set up in the with the feeling that you want and the type of way that you press the buttons, I think that the game is a lot of fun to play. Now, the other knock on this game, I should say, is that the music isn't Redbook audio. It isn't recorded classical music. It is in MIDI format. And the reason it's done that way is that if you're conducting too fast, if you miss some cues, the music will screw up a little bit, kind of like in Guitar Hero or in Rock Band, where when you make some mistakes, you hear the guitar twang or you hear the drums mishit, things like that. So the MIDI format works. I don't think it sounds terrible. It certainly doesn't sound as good as a full symphony orchestra would sound, but I think that it's very passable, and the selection of music here I think is pretty interesting. So that's the front of the box. You can see our Maestro friend here, and when we look on the back of the case, those are the screenshots we have. There's no tagline, by the way, at the top here. It's just a very quick story. It says, "The city plans to destroy the concert hall. You are a promising young conductor attempting to recruit the best musicians in your town. Once you've got your ensemble together, it's time for the big show, a musical extravaganza at Symphony Hall. Perform perfectly and keep music alive for generations to come. Hit a bad note and you'll be looking for a new gig." So yeah, if your symphony doesn't play right, if you don't get a good enough rating, then the game ends. Game over. You're fired. So that's kind of rough. There are 11 levels to beat, including the epic performance at Symphony Hall, and that's where you actually have to play a full concert. It's not one track or a couple of tracks. It's a full concert, and that's definitely challenging. Feel the music with touch-sensitive controls. I talked about the analog controls a little bit, and that's talked about here. This is where things kind of go off the rails a little bit and let you know it's a quirky game. You can recruit a lion, a model, a news reporter, a fisherman, and space aliens to play in your oddball orchestra. This game, by the way, is a blue-backed disc. You can see the compact disc logo there. So if your PS2 has issues playing CDs or compact discs, this is a game you may not want to invest in. It is super cheap. I got this for less than $10, and that was shipped. And this is still sealed, by the way. And you can get it loose or even complete in box for like $5, I'm sure, if you really look for it. It's an interesting music rhythm game. If you like classical music, I think it'll appeal to you a little bit more. If you've ever had that desire to want to conduct an orchestra, then this is your chance. And if you've done some conducting in the past, you'll notice some familiar patterns. Whether you're conducting in 4s or 3s, you will get the feel and the sense for the game relatively quickly. So let's go ahead and open this guy up, and we will see what's on the inside. This, by the way, is part of the Fresh Games series from IDOS Entertainment. This is also where we got games like Mr. Mosquito and R-Type Final and Legaia 2. I think those are actually the only other games that were in that series. All right, there we go. We've got it, so we're going to take this off of there just like that. You can see the plastic. There it is. Bye-bye, plastic. I'm still a bit under the weather. I'm dealing with a sinus infection, so please forgive the stuffy sound. Let's go ahead and we'll take the seal off the top here. Come on. There we go. Take the seal off the top. Just like that. And we open this up. Whoop. And this is what I was afraid of. So we'll put that back in the case. We see the blue Mad Maestro disc and the instruction manual. And we'll take the instruction manual out. There's the Fresh Games logo, by the way. I always like this. This was pretty neat. It looks like Ren from Ren and Stimpy, but with no fur. I don't know. That's what I always thought. There's the Mad Maestro scene with the town scene. The manual, unfortunately, is in black and white. It's not in color. That's too bad. But they have information about how to start the game, the room menu, how to play, called the Tempo Navigator. That's what you're going to be using to manage the tempo and to hit the buttons. The music selections in here are pretty interesting, at least to me. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So over 30 classical selections in here. Some marches, some waltzes, some very classical stuff from Mozart and Bach in here as well. Things that should be familiar, Mozart's 40th Symphony, the first movement, K550. The William Tell Overture, everyone knows that. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. A little night music from Mozart as well. Hall of the Mountain King from Edvard Grieg. You will recognize these when you hear them, and I think that they're pretty well done. And if you don't really listen to a lot of classical music, this is a great intro, and at the same time, it's fun to play. It can be frustrating, as I mentioned, because of the analog button controls, but if you do go into the options and adjust those, I think you'll have a good time with it. I do recommend this. I know that a lot of people kind of poo-poo on it because it doesn't have the Baton controls, because the analog controls are a little tight, because the music isn't Red Book, because it's MIDI. But honestly, if you like music rhythm games, you're looking for something a little bit quirky, and you're looking for either an intro to classical music or you really enjoy it, then this game, especially with as cheap as it is a great pickup for your PS2, whether it is used or, in this case, sealed, now unsealed. If you've played this game before, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Talk about it with me, whether you enjoyed it, whether you didn't like it, whether there are any other music rhythm games that you really like. Of course, DDR, Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and things like that. But this is one of those that kind of flies under the radar a little bit, and I think deserves a little bit more attention. Thanks, as always, for watching this episode of Unsealed. I really do appreciate it. And until the next time, everybody, see you later.